Council, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we have a roll call, please?
Johnson.
Here.
Kelly. Mikulski.
Here.
Polika.
Here.
Leaks May.
Here.
Madam Mayor, I move we excuse Councilmember Kelly from tonight's meeting.
Support?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. All right. Now approval of the agenda, please.
Madam Mayor, I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Support. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so Chief, we have the flock safety pilot, end of pilot presentation and recommendation.
So good evening, Mayor and Council. It's been a long time coming, it's about 2.5 years in the making, but we finally have the final recommendation for our flock safety ALPR pilot report. Joining me this evening, if you have any technical questions or something that I may not be able to answer, are two flock safety representatives, Trevor Chandler and Mike Lampman. Yeah. So we're going to start with the program review. Council originally approved this purchase in March of 2023. Camera installation really began in February of 2024. There was a long lag time and supply chain issues and permitting issues that kind of backed up the install, which in turn backed up the entire contract, which moved the renewal date back to this October. When we first installed, we installed 16 total flock cameras. 8 were approved by council and funded by forfeiture dollars. Then additional 8 cameras were funded for the entire pilot by donations from private corporate donations. At the point where we went into we made the decision, well, when what do they call the program? The project proving program. We were able to install 16 at no cost. And then at which point we had to make a decision on what we wanted to finish our contract with. And the city was able to fund 8. We were able to fund 7 more with the private donations. But when we did the private donations, we realized that one of the cameras was not getting the return on our investment, and we decided to pull camera 10 as of November of 2024. So from that point on, we had 15 total cameras. So we're able to gather a lot of data over this pilot program on which cameras are going to serve us going forward. Just a small sample of some of our local partners in law enforcement that are also flock safety subscribers, which adds strength to this resource as a law enforcement investigative database. The fact that these jurisdictions participate, and again, this is just a small sample: State Police, Oakland County Sheriff, Detroit, Hazel Park, Madison Heights, Royal Oak, Troy, Birmingham, Southfield, Oak Park, Warren, Sterling Heights, Shelby Township, and Auburn Hills. Again, that's a small regional sample. This is our map of camera locations. The ones that have the X's on them will be part of my recommendation to be removed. Those cameras are producing, in our opinion, not enough data or value to move forward. So essentially, eventually I'm going to recommend removing 7 more cameras. So we will be down to, I guess, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, we'll be down to 9 total. And the cameras were placed along our perimeter as it's part of the strategy for deployment for this technology. This data collection, because it's just so much data, we kind of like dialed it down to like 1 month in July to August, and this is what what we compiled. The average number of license plates read per day is about 140,000. The total hot list hits over the same period, 30-day period, is about 12,000. The total of Ferndale crimes investigated by the detectives were 123. Total number of improper traffic stops by patrol, meaning like on a misread on a plate, that type of thing, are 0. And that's because the officers are manually checking the hit that's coming across flock versus what they're actually seeing with their eyes before they make a stop. Cases cleared by arrest were 12, and the leads that the flock safety system generated was 7. The total hot list hits by camera are broken down into in this graph. You can see obviously the higher numbers are the state highways. Woodward Avenue M1 and 8 Mile M102 are the largest contributors to this, and then followed up by 9 Mile eastbound and westbound. All the other cameras, we are recommending that they come out. So there's a wide range of crimes that our detectives use this technology to solve, ranging from domestic violence, fleeing and eluding, attempted homicide, narcotics, stalking, actual homicide, vandalism, home invasion, fraud, felonious assault, weapons offenses, stolen vehicles, and larceny and retail fraud. What this graph doesn't have on there is crimes that were solved using our cameras by other jurisdictions. I forward you a letter, Chief Bill Hamill from Hazel Park. They recently had a double homicide involving a mother and her 12-year-old child. Our flock cameras contributed to that investigation. It was critical in recovering evidence and locating the whereabouts of the suspect. So it's not just one homicide that flock contributed to solving. Ours, also our shooting in our downtown, this contributed to locating those suspects and identifying them, but it also contributed to the murder of a woman and her child in a neighboring agency right next door. This is not hypotheticals. This is actual crime being solved using this technology. This is a picture of what the officers will see in their car. That's a mobile data computer MDC screen in a car with a hit on a flock vehicle, or a flock hit. Alerts officers directly in the patrol vehicles. It simplifies the verification of the information before initiating the traffic stop. So this is a sample of our organizational audit and policy review. Our flock policy overview was published in March of 2023, reviewed in March of 2024. Data validates the policy and procedures are working. Our hot list, officers must confirm the plate and photo match a vehicle before initiating the stop, as I said before. It prevents improper traffic stops despite the low occurrence of an ALPR misread. The network sharing access granted only with policy ensuring oversight and accountability consistent with ours, or signed memorandum of understanding with our department. I'm going to touch on that. That's kind of changed over the 2 years. There's been some policy changes at Flock, and just the simple sheer numbers of the subscribers to this technology has really made it difficult for staff to keep up with trying to do that, although we are trying, because that's what we said what we do. But it is difficult to keep up. And we'll get into a little bit farther, but the nationwide search, if you're a Flock subscriber and you do a nationwide search, you would search our network, but prior to June 2025, you would only get a heat spot or a, what do they call it? A heat map hit on where that plate was read. And you'd have to reach out to that department, and we would decide whether we share those images or not. That specifically happened a couple times, and we've used that search feature ourselves, doing nationwide searches for a attempt homicide investigation and a home invasion investigation where the suspects impersonated officers. So we use that nationwide network ourselves, and it is reciprocal. Like if we're participating in the nationwide, it's reciprocal. But because we participate in the one-to-one sharing, it does not release our data or our images without our permission. That was up until June of 2025, but I'll get more into that. But there are times, there was a Wisconsin department that was working a missing child investigation where the grandparents had abducted the children to the Detroit area. And this is just one example, and in the missing persons those investigations are the driving factor or influence on the nationwide search feature. So since June of 2025, there was a change in policy within FLOC, and because of the need for timely information on missing investigations and to make it more expeditious in finding locations, if you did have an exact plate, meaning exact plate reading with the exact state, as of June, they would release that data for the simple fact that it was saving time and during critical incidents. But also at that time, FLOC changed their policy regarding searches that featured or targeted reproductive rights, abortion, or immigration. Any searches for those topics were prohibited and would not return data as of June of 2025. So that FLOC as a company really came more in line with our values and our own policy. So it really kind of mitigated our data being released for that other type of like criminal inquiry. We've vetted 700 plus agencies. We've actually rejected 42 agencies for not meeting our standards. Only investigators have access to our FLOC safety system, meaning not in patrol where you receive the alerts, but for the search mechanism and the archive data, where the value is, why we recommended a 30-day retention on it to come more in line, which matches our Ferndale surveillance ordinance. So that 30-day retention, it matches all video or images saved in the city. So it adheres to that and follows that policy. So the only people who have access to the search mechanism are the admin and these four investigators. I'm an admin, Sergeant Blanchard's an admin, and Captain O'Loughlin are admin, but we don't use the search feature. We're just part of the admin supervisory role. These are some of the policy changes that FLOC has implemented. As I said, searches related to immigration and reproductive rights are prohibited system-wide as of June 2025. To aid law enforcement regarding missing person investigation, image sharing is granted if there is an exact plate hit when participating in a nationwide network search, as I stated before. A nationwide network search will not return images on partial plates or vehicle description, like vehicle fingerprint searches. It's just too much information probably, and it doesn't release information on that. It has to be an exact match on the plate. These are some of our most notable outcomes, and I went through all that list on that bar graph with all the the B&Es and larcenies and stolen cars, and that's great. We want to make retail fraud arrests, and we want to investigate all that crime. But this is the crime where the victims are most impacted, this community is most impacted, and this closes the loop and provides some closure to some people who are really vulnerable. An armed robbery arrest from the White Castle in February of 2023. Home invasion, armed robbery that happened on East Woodland in 2023. Breaking and entering at a dispensary in 2023. A carjacking in Hazel Park. Our cameras hit on that suspect and they were able to make an arrest. Attempted robbery at the 7-Eleven on the west side in 2024. Second-degree murder over road rage for an Uber driver. This crime would likely have gone unsolved without this technology. This is murder in our streets. That was just in April of 2025. There was another attempted murder, a shooting in our downtown at a nightclub. This contributed to solving that crime. That person was also an over-the-road trucker. So we do have instances where we're in the middle of an active investigation and suspects are crossing state lines and driving across the country. Sometimes they do it because they're working. Sometimes they do it because they're hoping the heat cools down and then they can come back. But it's important to monitor their whereabouts and communicate with law enforcement partners that we're working with. And again, I stated there was a murder of a mother and a child. That was just as recent as this September 1st, 2025. This QR code is to view our flock dashboard where we host our outcomes and there's data being shared there. I can bring that bucket back up at the end. So this technology was endorsed by Oakland County prosecutor and Michigan Attorney General candidate Karen McDonald. Prosecutor McDonald said, and I quote, "Flock has proven to be an invaluable tool assisting local law enforcement's efforts to keep our communities safe. Evidence obtained by Flock has helped our office to successfully prosecute criminals in numerous cases. In many instances, Flock has assisted in locating perpetrators of serious violent crimes much faster than they would have been found without this technology. While I endorse Flock as an effective law enforcement tool, I recognize the privacy concerns voiced by community members. My support for Flock is not made lightly. Justice requires balancing the values of public safety and civil liberties. Maintaining the balance requires constant vigilance. The due diligence this body is exercising is important and proper. My office and I have worked closely with the Ferndale Police on countless cases, and they are exactly the kind of responsible law enforcement agency that can use Flock to solve serious crimes without violating public trust." And that's, again, Karen McDonald, Oakland County prosecutor. Some of the misconceptions, one of the concerns is federal law enforcement has access to our Flock safety network. They do not. They do not have access to the nationwide database that I spoke of before. Our Flock safety network is being used for immigration enforcement. That is not true. One of the concerns is license plate misreads may be occurring at a rate of 40%. The fact is that Flock safety accuracy rates far exceed rest of their competitors and are approximately at 94% accurate, where other APL vendors may have misreads in the area of 40%. One of the concerns was ALPR networks are a violation of the Fourth Amendment. The fact is that ALPR technology has been found to be constitutional in dozens of court cases nationwide. A few more concerns. Flock cameras are automatically reporting suspicious activity by innocent people going about their business to the police. The fact is, information is only gathered by investigators conducting searches that are driven by intelligence. It does not manifest suspects out of nowhere. These are investigations and searches made in the search engine by intelligence gathered through the investigation. Homeowners, one of the concerns is homeowners associations and private subscribers can access the law enforcement database. That is not true. The fact is, law enforcement can access the HOA and private networks with an agreement. Like Lowe's has, all of the Lowe's parking lots have flock cameras in them. We have access to that. However, it's not reciprocal. We sign an agreement that we can view their data, but it's not reciprocal. They cannot see the law enforcement database. They can see their own images on their flock system within their HOA or Lowe's, but they cannot see what we see as part of our network. So findings and recommendations. Flock is shown to be an effective force multiplier for patrol and investigations. It generated leads, led to arrests, and closed cases that would have gone unsolved. The data analysis shows a correlation between high traffic volume and hot list alerts. After considering the data collected over the course of the pilot program, the police department recommends continuing the ALPR program by renewing the flock safety contract for a period of 2 years. The police department also recommends scaling back the program from 15 cameras to 9 cameras. This, in essence, leaves eastbound into the city on 8 Mile, westbound into the city on 8 Mile, north and southbound Woodward, and 9 Mile. That's where we really realize that we're getting the most bang for our buck as far as data, and so all the cameras will be pulled out if it is approved by this body. So as a funding recommendation, the police department recommends funding for the ALPR program with drug forfeiture funds. The current drug forfeiture account balances can sustain this expense while easing the burden on the general fund. The current rate and cost is $3,000 per camera per year, $27,000 per year for 2 years, for total cost of the 2-year contract of $54,000. Let's see. So that concludes my presentation. Trevor and Mike and I can answer any questions you may have, so, or do our best to answer them.
Okay, well, I'll open it up to council for questions regarding the presentation that we've heard tonight.
I'll go first. So I think my first question is going to be probably more for you, Chief. So if we have so many neighboring jurisdictions using flock, how much overlap do we have on our borders? Like, you know, if other jurisdictions are also using flock immediately adjacent to us, how much of what they're covering is also what we're covering at those same points?
That's a good question, but the way the technology strategy is, and maybe they can help me, but you're getting that coming into your city, so they would get it going the other way. So there's actually not quite overlap because they're directional, if that makes sense. So if you're eastbound into our city, there wouldn't be a exiting camera from, you know, one of the neighboring jurisdictions duplicating those efforts, because it is part of a coordinated effort. That's how they're stopping it from being like the redundancy that you're talking about, because they're directional. Now, westbound leaving our city, we don't have a camera. Westbound 8 Mile leaving our city, our cameras are coming in. So if Oak Park, or I guess it wouldn't be, I guess on 9 Mile it would be Oak Park, and they want to put one going into their city, they're not collecting the same, because one is eastbound, one is westbound. So we're focused on what's coming into our city, and if Oak Park wants to focus on that point coming into their city, that would be their option. But the beauty is the network and cooperating with everybody involved in the process.
I think, you know, the point of my question really is, yes, the collaboration is the point of the network, meaning, you know, let's say we have an armed robbery, 7-Eleven, and the perpetrator leaves the city on 9 Mile into Oak Park using 9 Mile as their escape route. wouldn't we be looking at that information in the network from Oak Park's camera? Because they're leaving our city. They've committed a crime in our city. We're not looking at who's exiting, but they're looking at who's entering. And so their data is really the data that we would get in that instance, because we don't track what goes out.
Yes, I mean, there's two parts of the crime. You're following the suspect to the scene of the crime and away from the scene of the crime. So certainly once they leave here, we would definitely rely heavily on other partners, like if it was Oak Park or Detroit. You know, our attempted, I don't want to get them confused, our homicide of our DoorDash driver, those suspects, we were able to follow their whereabouts all the way into a casino in Detroit, and then help our investigators find out who's in the car, and work with the security at the casinos to find them moving and having conversations. And it really does paint the best picture for prosecution on their whereabouts, their state of mind, their actions. So a lot of that is critical. So yes, the partners leaving the scene, it's coming to the scene and then leaving the scene. So you're kind of, it's everything's taken into account to kind of like recreate what happened in a criminal incident. But yes, it's important, and we would definitely use other cameras, and we have.
I think so obviously I have a lot of questions, so I'm only asked two, and then I'll, maybe we can, if my colleagues agree, maybe we can do them like two at a time each, and as we work through them. I suspect we may have a lot. I think my next question is probably more for the folks from Flock. So I understand, and I do believe, that the federal government does not have access to the system, but it doesn't mean that the federal government cannot compel access to the system. And you would be, just like any other entity, required to comply with various types of requests or orders. What kind of data is actually held on Flock's end? This is something that's, I think, continued to be very opaque to me. And, we scan stuff. I know that we have a retention period of 30 days. What other locations does that data go to? Because you certainly are operating a large backhaul. So what's being kept on your end?
Absolutely, that's a great question. So first and foremost, you all have a 30-day retention, correct? So once that 30-day retention is done, it is deleted. It is hard deleted from the servers. It's very important to note, Flock does not own any of the images that are collected with Ferndale's cameras. You all have 100% ownership of it. We store it on our secure servers, and after that 30-day retention period, it is fully deleted, unrecoverable.
From your servers?
Yes. And that is the only place they're served. Unless your department downloads an image for investigatory purposes, then it is kept according to your evidence holding guidelines. And once it's off our server, it is fully in your hands. But once it is that we pass that 30-day retention period, it is sanitized in the words of tech speak, but it is hard deleted.
And that's set by each jurisdiction's rules. So
Yes.
each jurisdiction's, let's call it partition, is going to have their retention rules, however they may be.
Yes, I would say well over 90% of Flock's customers have a 30-day retention. That is the general best practice, as we figured out. Flock actually spearheaded this kind of balance between public safety and privacy, of saying 30-day retention is what most departments find provides the best investigatory use, while also respecting the fact that communities don't want their data held for years at a time. There are exceptions to that on either end, both on the longer term and shorter term, but 30 days is the best practice across the country.
I do have a question. Okay. So I guess it's, from what I'm hearing, from what I heard the chief state, so I guess this is for Flock. As of June 2025, the Flock system was prohibited as far as reproductive rights and immigration. And my first question is, how was it utilized before then? And two, how did that impact Ferndale's use? And how does it impact our use now?
So up until this point, we are continually innovating to try to make compliance with federal and state and local laws as easy as possible. And so the big point to make is that agencies have always had the decisions. Your community has always had the decision on who they want to partner with. Flock never makes partnerships decisions or sharing decisions for a customer. So what we wanted to always work and continually innovate towards is how can communities ensure they have community safety without having to sacrifice community values. So in instances where there's a state sanctuary law, we've worked to make sure that there were the tools to be compliant with those. And what we heard from many of our customers is they wanted those same sort of filters and protections at the municipal level. And so that's what you heard your chief talk about, is we have rolled out both a filter for sanctuary cities that do not want their images searched at all for immigration enforcement purposes, as well as a reproductive health filter that does the same. And so that is what we have enabled for Ferndale according to your community values.
Chief? Is this something that we've had to utilize beforehand?
I guess.
As far as other uses other than crime, have we had to utilize Flock for anything else?
We've never used it for anything but
Wes?
criminal investigation. That, I mean, it's civil judgment and anything to do with immigration. We've, we have extensive contacts and networking throughout our industry, and we've had people that we are quite close with that have called up and said, hey, can you run this for Flock? And they're like, you can't use our Flock. You work for Immigration and Customs Enforcement. You can't use it. And then, even if he said, well, we're not using it I'm not asking you to run it. I'm part of a criminal task force out of Detroit working gang violence. I said, nonetheless, you are an ICE agent. We're just going to say hard no. And even if you're running it for gang violence, the simple fact is we take it seriously. We know we were trusted with this technology. That's why we limited the people that can use it. And it's hard, fast rule to follow those guidelines.
Through the chair. Great presentation. I would love a copy of it if you can. I'm going to circle back on a couple questions that came up as my colleagues were talking. Starting with the 30-day data retention policy and the fact that images are deleted for us and Flock after 30 days. And I'm going to go back to 2023 when we signed our contract. And in 2023, there was an item in the contract, item 4, confidentiality, item 1, that says, for clarity, Flock may access, use, preserve, and/or disclose the footage to law enforcement authorities, government officials, and/or third parties, if legally required to do so, or if Flock has a good faith belief that such access, use, preservation, or disclosure is reasonably necessary to comply with legal process or request, enforce this agreement, including investigation of any potential violation thereof, detect, prevent, or otherwise address security, fraud, or technical issues, or protect the rights, property, or safety of Flock, its users, a third party, or the public as required or permitted by law, yada, yada. That seems very counter to the 30-day policy, broadly speaking. What assurance do we have that that data is not being held?
So a very good question. Thank you for that. And it's important to note, Flock does not have a general right of access to the Ferndale data, and that's why it's explicitly enumerated. Again, it is your data 100%. Those are specific legal requirements for things like subpoenas or situations like that. And it also explicitly states in the contract that if for some reason Flock is served a subpoena for your data, that we are legally obligated to notify you as long as there's no non-disclosure demand in that subpoena, we are legally required to notify you. And so in those cases, we get them quite often where a prosecutor or a ADA might reach out to Flock and be like, well, we're looking for this Flock data for this thing. We'd redirect them to the city attorney so that your department can respond to it in the way that your city seems fit. It's important to note that once that data is deleted, it is gone. So if someone came over on day 31 and said, we want access to this piece of data that was collected 28 days ago, it couldn't happen because it is hard sanitized, hard deleted, it would not go anywhere. So the language you just read enumerates the specific legal circumstances where Flock would legally be potentially required in that regard. But again, after the 30 days is up, it is gone. It doesn't matter if the Supreme Court came and said, we want this image from 28 days ago. It doesn't exist anymore and it cannot be retrieved.
Okay, 2 more contract questions then. We're going to start with 4.2, agency data. As between Flock and agency, all right, title, and interest in the agency data belong to and/or retained solely by agency. Agency hereby grants to Flock a limited, non-exclusive, royalty-free, worldwide license to use the agency data and perform all acts with respect to the agency data as may be necessary for Flock to provide the Flock services to the agency, including, without limitation, the support services set forth in Section 2.10 above, and a non-exclusive, perpetual, irrevocable, worldwide, royalty-free, fully paid license to use, reproduce, modify, display, and distribute the agency data as a part of aggregated data, and disclose the agency data, both inclusive of any footage, to enable law enforcement monitoring for elected law enforcement hot lists, as well as provide footage search access to law enforcement for investigative purposes, yada, yada. I'm not going to finish that part. Followed up by 4.5, aggregated data. Flock shall have the right to collect, analyze, and anonymize agency data and agency-generated data to create aggregated data, to use and perform the services and related systems and technologies, including the training of machine learning algorithms. Agency hereby grants Flock a non-exclusive, worldwide, perpetual, royalty-free, during and after the term hereof, to use and distribute such aggregated data to improve and enhance the services, and for other development, diagnostic, and corrective purposes, yada, yada. Those 2 seem counter to what you just said about us owning the data and Flock not using that data in perpetuity. Can you explain that?
Yes, absolutely. So starting from the back, moving forward, the machine learning. So it's important to note that our contract explicitly prohibits selling data. Flock does not sell data, and so I want to make that very important. Some people make insinuations that we're similar to a social media company where we collect this data, aggregate it, and then sell it to advertisers or whatever. That is not the case. That is not our business model, and we are contractually...
To be clear, I did not.
Oh, yeah, so yeah, 100%. So I just want to, as part of that. So with the aggregated data for the machine learning, what happens there is less than 1% of all images are selected to make continual improvements. As you read the accuracy in our cameras, upwards of 94%, it's because, every time a new license plate comes out or a new model car comes out, there's the potential for mix-up. Like a 3 could be mistaken for an E. So through the machine learning, we identify what kind of license plates is a 3 being mistaken for an E, and that's where that aggregated data comes into place, where an image is selected absent of any metadata, so no location, no time, not even the agency it came from is brought with it, and it is used for machine learning purposes. So that needs to be held indefinitely because that's how machine learning works. They need the constant comparison in order to continually improve. And so that's what that refers to. Moving into your the one you started with, that's in regards to if you all are having a malfunction, if there's some sort of damage to your data for any reason, that, again, it enumerates the specific pieces where we are allowed to be able to, go into your data to try to fix that. And it's important to note these things that you put in there are specific and enumerated because Flock does not have a general right of access to your data. It's only for specific points of product improvement and making sure you're getting the service that you pay for.
A couple other points real quick. The chief has said that the federal agents don't have access to our data. In going through some of the data from the network access list that was provided previously. I know nobody can see this, but I took a screenshot from March of 2025 and did a quick pivot table, and I have a couple agencies here in brackets, and the brackets say federal, and we have ATF Louisville, Kentucky, and then brackets inactive, and that was 217 times. ATF Nashville, Tennessee, that is 453 times. Homeland Security Investigations, 60 times. Lake Mead NV NRA, 3 times. Langley, Virginia Air Force Base, 11 times. Naval Criminal Investigative Surface, 59 times. Rob Bush Medical Center, Indiana Veterans Affairs, PD, 3 times. US GSA Office of Inspector General, 19 times. Are those federal agencies?
It sounds like some of them are, yes.
Yes. So, can you tell me what exactly happened in June of 2025? It looks like, according to the presentation, we said that we banned federal agencies that were searching for immigration and reproductive rights. Would it be my assumption that all of those were searching for that? That doesn't seem possible. But we did see an absolute drop off to 0 since June of 2025. What would be the cause of that?
So I can't speak to the specific sharing arrangements. What I can say is, repeating what your chief said, is prior there was a heat map. So while there may have been a search indicating that there was a hit in your area, it would not have returned the specific license plate. They would have had to reach out to your department for those specific access points. But I'm happy to yield to the chief for any specifics.
I'm not aware of those. There was an extensive amount of data. I mean, each month could have had north of 500, 400,000 nationwide searches. So I don't know if that was, and this is more of a flat question probably, if it was just an update at that time. That I'm not sure. I can't speak to it. I know that it relative to the amount of searches that happened over the last 2 years, it is a small sample. It is alarming that those agencies did have access. We are confident we didn't release any. Nobody reached out to us, and nobody was granted permission. As far as I know, we only had 2 local agencies, one out of Wisconsin and one out of Tennessee, and that was for local law enforcement, criminal enforcement, or missing persons. We did not have any federal partners reach out to us, and they were not given anything. So I think that they just searched the network, or were not given any data. I hope, and I've spoken to Flock about increasing the search parameters, and that they said they are moving that way. And I think that we're trending in the right direction. I think that there is going to be a continued learning curve with this technology, but it sounds like it's a relatively small sample considering the vast amount of searches done nationwide. But yeah, I understand. I would want an answer too on why those slipped through. And I don't know what was happening with the operator. I don't know if it was a local task force officer or it was actually a federal person. In some cases, you have federal task force officers assigned to, you have local people assigned to federal agencies like we do. We have an officer with the FBI, an officer with DEA. And I don't know how that comes across when they run something. I understand that our officers are running them on our flock system. Mm-hmm. I don't know what other agencies are doing, but it is a point of concern that we should close the loop on and get an answer on moving forward.
Yeah, it was just very interesting, and that was one example. That was March of 2025, and like I said, after June of 2025, I have not seen these quote-unquote bracketed federal agencies that show inactive next to them. As a follow-up item, if if Flock would be amenable to a conversation with me on an ongoing basis before our next meeting, I would be very excited to have that conversation to understand the data a little bit more. Just as hopefully a final thought, I think I've maxed out my time here. You said something earlier about the fact that there were some changes to policy with network access sharing. And again, prior to June 2025, we would only get the heat map. Since June 2025, if they have an exact plate, we automatically release the data. In looking at our ALPR policy, which states, and bear with me, I'm just trying to scroll up through my information here. Our ALPR policy, we have a section in there that talks about that sharing. And it feels like we may be missing the mark. It was in our, let me see if I can actually find it. It was in our confidentiality item that basically said we don't want to share unless we have an MOU with another entity. Is it my understanding that essentially anybody can access our network? It's a dragnet. They can look for something so long as they have a plate number.
If you're opted into National Lookup and that other agency is also opted into National Lookup, that is possible, or if you have a direct one-to-one sharing agreement.
Okay. Are we opted into National Lookup, Chief?
We are at this time, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And yes, we'd be happy to continue to have that conversation with you.
Fabulous.
Through the chair, following up on Mayor Pro Tem Mikulski's last inquiry, we're opted in the national, what'd you call it? National, I'm sorry?
Lookup.
A national lookup. What data is available to see in that national lookup? That, are you able to see everything that we would see on our servers?
Since June of 25, and this is just a couple months, since they've updated the immigration and reproductive policy and restricted it, if it is an exact match, you would be able to get the data. And that's something like this.
What, I guess my question is, what is the data? Is it all the images? Is it any supporting documentation? Or is it just the fact that that VIN or that license plate is available on our server?
No, they would actually get the images since June of 2025.
Okay.
And like I said, that was designed to hasten an investigation related to missing persons, to save them the time to reach out to each individual agencies, depending on when it's happening, whether it's in the middle of the night or something. That was a change in flock policy. Quite honestly, as this continues to grow, it was easier in the beginning to collect all these policies and sign the MOUs, but it's become a monumental task for a small staff. So we're doing our best, but we may need to look at changing the policy, and policies need to evolve. And that was the right policy for us when it started in 2023. It was daunting and my staff hated me for it, but that's what we tried to do our best, and we wanted to comply with it. But as Flock has evolved, they've evolved, and I felt like that I guess that release of that information with the change in their own internal policies kind of mitigated some of the things that we were worried about in terms of, usage that didn't, really comply with our values. So I felt like that, I guess that vulnerability, for lack of a better term, was mitigated because they came more in line with what we wanted, and the national flock policy came closer to our own. So I really did feel like it was worth it. On some level, we yeah, we're giving up a little bit to participate in that national lookup, but it has proven to be valuable for our investigators. And the vast majority of law enforcement agencies around this area that I know of, my colleagues that I spoke to, our policy is much more restrictive in nature than theirs, and most of them just follow the national trend, which is probably a template or a boilerplate policy that's recommended.
Is there a way for us to know if another community has identified a plate that's on our server? So someone in Ohio is doing the lookup, they determine that, oh, there's, it's been found in Ferndale. Is there a way for us to know that they have triggered it, or are we just?
Yeah, so the network audit, you have two versions of audits that you get, both one audit of how your department is using the tool, and you can also pull a network audit of folks within your network, other agencies in your network, and how their searches have interacted with the images on your cameras. And so, yes, you would be able to see that.
Okay, what if they're not in our network, but they're on the national lookup?
That'd be the same thing.
Yeah, it's the same
yeah,
thing? Okay,
yep.
okay.
I'm not sure you answered your question, Councilmember. You could run a search through our network. It doesn't mean that you produced an image. You're asking, how do you know if it produced an image? Is that correct?
I'm asking, so if there's an agency in Ohio, they're doing a lookup, they're able to access our information, they find that we have a VIN that we tagged, or an image of a VIN, a plate, in Ferndale, so they've identified that. How do we know that they've identified that?
Yeah, and our audits that you would be able to get through a network access audit would show that. It would show that you.
Okay, so we would have to instigate that. It's not a trigger. It's not an alert that says,
Right.
this agency has identified a plate on our server?
Right, no, that would be part of, you'd be able to see that as part of the audit.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so to the chief, do we run that audit? And how often do we run that audit?
We can. I think it was set up to do annual audits, but we can. I wasn't really very versed in that particular audit or search or some of the nationwide, sharing. And I thought, for the longest time, they had to reach out to us. So it really wasn't necessary, only until June of 25. Yeah. So it's really only been, that feature's only been in place for a few months now. Yeah. But it's certainly something that we can look into changing our policy. You really need to change policies annually anyway, or at least review them and change them as needed. So it's something we can address in our own internal policy as far as oversight.
Yeah, I would suggest that we change the policy, and I think a year, pulling that report once a year is not enough. I would think doing it once a week, just to make sure that someone's not always going in and pulling things from our server, just doing random lookups, because I trust our department on using it with integrity. I don't know what these other, agencies are doing and finding data within our servers.
No, understood.
Has anyone approached the Citizens Police Review and Advisory Board with any accusations that their civil liberties have been violated?
Not in an official PCC or police conduct complaint. We have not had anybody. Commissioner Woodman is actually here, and I know that Commissioner Couples has reached out to council, but nobody has in an official capacity reached out to them, maybe in private conversations, not at the official CPAR meetings, but not that I am aware of.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure, because board member Couples did reach out to us, and there was no sign that anything ever came about that, and we've never received anything as a lawsuit that someone's civil liberties have been violated using this technology.
No, through the chair, there's been no notice or claim with respect to that.
That's all I have.
So I think forgive me, I'm a slow swimmer tonight. I think I'm a little confused because earlier it felt like our data was relatively secure and people needed to work with us to get access to it. But as this conversation continued, it started to feel like that's not the case. We've opted into a query setup that, in fact, has opened our information to anyone who wants to look at it. So that, to me, feels very different from what I thought was happening at the beginning of this Q&A session, because this feels like we've eliminated one of those protections that we had thought was in place, which was to prevent just sort of unfettered query access to our information and to require a conversation or a reach out or an agreement that says like, hey, I don't care if someone queries and they say, Ferndale has information relevant to this, here's their contact their chief or their chief information officer, and they will work with you to work out an agreement to give you access to this information if you will agree to the agreement. I think that's what I thought was happening. It sounds like that's not what's happening. It sounds like what's happening is they're querying the database and they're just getting what they need. They're not having to go through an agreement process. Well, that's a giant hole in our policy. Our policy says you have to have an agreement with us and that you have to agree to abide by you have to share our values. If Bob Smith in, Okefenokee, Florida, wants to run a search from the Okefenokee Police Department on a plate, and he just gets everything there, regardless of what his search criteria are. So while I appreciate their search terms, I can say that I'm searching for a license plate because they were in an armed robbery. I just check a different box. But if I'm searching for someone who's fleeing prosecution for procuring an abortion in a state that's made it illegal, okay, then I just don't check that I'm looking for someone for an abortion. That's not hard to do. You just say, okay, she committed an armed robbery. Okay, well now I can query that plate for an armed robbery. So I appreciate the work that you have done, and I know you two specifically are not the creators and implementers of these policies, but it feels like there's a lot of holes all of a sudden that I'm hearing about this evening, and it's really shaking my confidence in this quite a lot. Because again, I thought we had a firewall. We don't have a firewall. We've opted in to allow people to just get stuff, and that is not the policy that this city adopted.
Right, I understand what you're saying, and it is a recent change as of June of 2025. I understand that, and it wasn't. It was something that if we were going to stay active in the national sharing for our own investigators, it's reciprocal. Now I could opt out of national sharing, but that also impedes our own investigators, who would have to take another route, perhaps, to get that information. I'm not saying that couldn't happen. We can do that. We're amenable to it because we do see value in it, and we're by no means taking a hard line, take it or leave it, because we know how important this is, and I want to work with this body to continue with using this technology that is proven to work. Now, if we have to opt out of the national lookup, then we'll do that, because it would be used far more regionally, locally, with all the people we have partnerships with the one-to-one sharing. And if we have to worry about a national search, we'll have to maybe lean on our partners, our network. We have investigators in these other units, and we could lean on them a little bit if we believe a suspect is going across state lines. I'm here because I'm trying to tell you what exactly has happened, how the program has evolved, because it definitely has changed since March of 2023. And there's no technology that hasn't changed in the last 2.5 years. So what I think is that we are closer to what we want by Flock. And what you're saying, you can misuse any database. There are people misusing government databases right now somewhere, and you're absolutely right. I would suggest if important to this body. No, I mean, I will say that it would be, we may be an outlier, but if that's what it takes to get this done and keep this tool for my detectives to solve crime and bring justice to the victims in this community, then I'm amenable to it because it's important.
How frequently do we query for national? Just ballpark, I don't expect you to.
You know, it's probably not that often.
Can't imagine it would be, to be
No,
honest.
and like I said, we used it for homicide investigations, murder investigations, home invasion 1, armed robbery. We used it for those investigations because the intel led us to say, oh, they're leaving the state. We know that they're leaving the state. We need to know where they're going. So that's why we opted in. And we did it from the beginning. Yeah, it has changed since June of 2025. It's definitely changed the rules on us, and it didn't really mesh with our policy. But we'll change the policy. We'll shut off the national lookup, and we'll go with the one-to-one sharing. And in the times that we need an investigation to cross state lines, we'll pivot. We'll get creative. We'll do what we need to do. But if it gives confidence in this board or this council in the police department and the use of this technology, we'll do it because it's important. And trust me, the easy way would be not to renew Flock. The easy thing to do for me would be not to bring Flock forward in the first place in 2023. But I have a responsibility, and I am charged with keeping the community safe. It's important to give my officers, my detectives, the tools necessary to do their jobs efficiently and do their best to bring people to justice. That's why we're here, having an uncomfortable conversation about technology that you question. But I'm here because it means something to the detectives, it means something to me. And it's not about, it's simply about bringing justice and solving crime that would go unsolved. We have unsolved murders in this city.
Right.
And it's not a point of pride. It stings when that happens. It stings to the family that is victimized. But if this board wants us to exit the national search base, then we do it because it's important.
I think it's really important to stress one thing. I don't think anyone here, I don't think anyone in this room questions your commitment personally to this. I think we believe that you're a chief who shares our values. I want that to be very clear. But as you noted, technology's changed a lot since 2023. The world has changed a lot since 2023. And we're
Absolutely.
contending with that as well. And so technology can do a lot of really good and cool things and really helpful, amazing things, but it can also do some really harmful and dangerous things. And we are trying to keep up and maintain our values as a city in a country that is increasingly not sharing our values, and a federal government that is not sharing our values, and a federal government that really doesn't give a shit, to be honest and frank, about rules, procedures, court orders, subpoenas, the need for any of those things. So, I mean, we're trying to contend with those things. It's not you and your officers who are really my concern. I won't speak for my colleagues, but I think I can. You're not really our concern.
I understand.
Our concern is the rest of the world. And how can I control for that? And it's hard. It's really hard to do that. So we're not questioning you and your commitment to the policy. And I know you'll get on board and you'll do whatever you need to do to maintain a tool. But we have to also weigh the greater concerns that we have. This is just very difficult because it's done very good things for us. It has brought justice to families who have lost loved ones.
Absolutely.
That's what you are charged to do, is solve these crimes. Absolutely. But we have a bigger charge. It's not just that. And we are trying to weigh and balance that and those various concerns. I think that's all I got.
Well, you actually summarized. I have it right here. I have.
Sorry, Mayor.
I was like the details, loopholes, risk in terms of use, risk of use in terms of what's being collected and how it's shared, and then the fact that it's helping to solve crimes that may have been solved, not have been solved originally, or quick or even cold case files. So that is the dilemma. That's the dilemma. Bless you.
Through the chair is a simple ask. If we could see what a contract looks like that doesn't opt us into the national database, along with terms and conditions and all of the relevant boilerplate language, that would be very helpful.
You don't need a contract. You as your agency has the ability to turn it off without a contract. I think it's important to note Flock has no dog in the fight as far as national lookup versus no national lookup. Our job is to make it as customizable so your community safety doesn't have to come at the expense of community values. So nothing contractually mandates you be in national lookup.
Could we see an updated version of the contract that we're going to be asked to sign for the next 2 years? And
Yes.
Terms and conditions? So I'm assuming that we probably have that. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. We'll get it for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And just so that's clear for the public, we don't have a copy of that yet because tonight's not a voting night. So we haven't yet had the draft review, just so everyone understands.
But I do believe that the Mayor Pro Tem did ask for this presentation we'd like to have,
For sure.
that you have here.
The plan, council, was to not repeat this entire presentation, but in a regular agenda item on the 13th would be highlight the points of the contract that you're talking about. And as soon as we get the contract, we could forward it to you so you have the earliest viewing of that we could, so we can work out details. So we'll be doing that this week.
One final thought on that. Is there language in there that defines what that national sharing database looks like and how to turn it on, turn it off, and what gets shared?
Well, I have, in my admin rights, I can toggle that button on and off. It's just part of it, but if you're looking for additional.
I'm looking for the legalese.
Okay.
I'm always looking for the legalese and where I can interpret what.
Absolutely. I can tell you there's nothing in the contract specifically to national lookup because it's an opt-in, opt-out. But we'll obviously get you that contract information if you would like something in there that's not in there, totally part of the contractual process. But yeah, there's nothing, again, there's nothing in the contract itself that mandates Ferndale do national lookup. It's purely an agency and community decision.
Do me a favor, send me a primer on what the national lookup looks like versus turning it off.
Happy to.
And to that point, I think you kind of hit a little bit what I was about to say. I think there's presumably, as with any system, you're training users, you're training people how to use it. So maybe if there are copies of the user guide or the thing that would train the chief so that the screenshots of what does the screen look like where the chief goes to click a button? What does that look like when he does that? You know, that kind of stuff is also kind of helpful for us because a lot of this, you know, remember this council and this government structure, we don't run the government in a day-to-day. And so we have Colleen for that, and the chief and the other directors. But so we don't often see these systems. I don't know what it looks like to be in Flock.
Okay.
And I don't want to see anything that we should not see in Flock. Very clear about that too. But it would be helpful to see like, okay, the chief logs in and then there's this screen and then there's this screen and then here's what the settings look like. That kind of document, which I know exists because you're training users. So if we could get a copy of that, that would really be interesting and possibly informative for us. I don't know what I might get from it. I'm going to be very honest about that. But seeing it, I might get something that I wasn't expecting to get.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to talk with our customer success manager team and get you something that could walk you through the toggles and steps and all of that. Happy to.
Perfect.
Okay. Do we have any other questions regarding this presentation tonight?
Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And there's an open invitation for anybody at the table who wants to come sit alongside a detective and have them walk you through an actual investigation using this search tool. I mean, there's a handful of people have taken me up on that offer, and it's an open offer to everybody here at council to come see it in use. So maybe you can gain a appreciation through the eyes of the detective on what it's doing in their daily, course of their duties. But I thank you for your time, council, and I appreciate all the very thoughtful questions. I do share, you may not think so, but I do share your concerns as well. But trying to balance getting the tools, doing a job, and keeping the faith of this board and the residents it's a balancing act. And I'm committed to working with you to find that right level where where this technology and our policy and our community can coexist. So, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks. I appreciate it, guys.
All right. Now we are coming to our call to audience, where audience can come to the podium and, the podium and speak on anything on or off the agenda. And you have 3 minutes to do it. If you so choose, you can state your name and your address.
Good evening. My name is Mary Schusterbauer, 2634 Highland. Tonight, I'm here representing Citizens for a Fair Ferndale. Oh, but wait, last time I was here, I said, I'm going to have something new for you the next time I show up. So we are now evolving to be just Fair Ferndale. Can you see that? No, it doesn't show. Okay, so we're evolving. So, we're grassy and rootsy. I've said that for years. But so we're getting rid of Citizens for Fair Ferndale. We're evolving to just Fair Ferndale with this new logo. So you'll see that we're slow, but we'll get it done. New website being developed. But the main thing I'm here to talk about tonight is the candidate forum that we have coming up on Sunday, October 5th from 2 to 4, right across the parking lot in the library. And I have these precious little flyers sitting on the back table. And I mean, we all know elections are important, but watching this discussion about what's fair for Ferndale, for our citizens, it's so important to elect. So we want people to see and know the people before they elect them. So please show up. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary.
Hi, good evening. Kat Latosh, West Breckenridge. First, I want to thank Chief Emmy for the presentation tonight. Thank you. Really appreciate that. City Council, all of you asked stellar questions tonight. It was really great to see engaged dialogue on this topic. As you know, I'm really passionate about it, as evidenced by my button right here. So you know what I'm going to say. But I want to share basically two themes. I heard a lot about the word evolution or evolving tonight. And we all know we're not living in 2023 here. And I heard that the way the data has been used has evolved without our knowledge and has in violation of city policy tonight. I think that's what I heard tonight, and that was a surprise. We heard that the policy of Flock is evolving. I know from what I've read about the company, it's evolving in other ways with its other products to develop other adding in AI to different products, adding in expanding drones, and adding in tying into other databases. I don't know what this means for our ALPR readers, but none of that was discussed tonight. But they're evolving too. And your decision should not be made on where we are today in 2025 because we're evolving. It should be made on where you're going to be in 2 years from now, because the policies are going to change. They're changing by the day. The other thing I want to talk about is why Flock? Flock does not have the best reputation. I have been reading up on the company, and yes, it changed the policy in June, but apparently the national lookup happened after that. There are cities that use other technologies to do these cameras. It doesn't have to be Flock. There are reports of Flock sharing data with U.S. Customs and Border Protection at the same time that it told customers it had no federal contracts. So I don't know what the language being used here is, but it doesn't seem ingenuous. The state of Illinois, from what I'm reading, is currently suing Flock for violating state law because they shared data against state law. Evanston, Illinois, tried to cancel their contract. Flock said no. They sued Evanston not for financial compensation, but to require them to put the cameras back up. So Evanston tried to cancel the contract in August. This is after their evolution in June. Evanston tried to cancel the contract in August, took the cameras down. According to reports, Flock has put the cameras back up without the city's permission. That's not Flock serving the interests of the community. That's Flock serving the interests of itself. I don't trust this company. I don't know why we're going with Flock. The ALPR data, tying into other databases, you know, we're hearing at a national level, Chief of Staff Stephen Miller proclaiming the White House will use every tool at its disposal to destroy people it doesn't like, essentially. The power of law enforcement under President Trump will be find you, will be used to take away your money, your power, and if you've broken the law, to take away your freedom. We're going to use every resource we have, according to the Vice President, at the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and throughout this government to identify, disrupt, dismantle, and destroy. We are not living in 2023. And in 2 years, we will not be here. But you have a time. We have a chance now to say no to this company.
Thank you, Kat. We have other people that want to speak, so
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Hello, my name is Peggy Harpin. I live on West Saratoga. First of all, I want to say thank you for all of the great questions because it actually, I learned something tonight that I didn't know about this national database and kind of the ins and outs, and really disturbed that there's like a toggle to turn it on or off. It doesn't really seem like there's a lot of safeguards against that. You know, just on somebody's desktop computer. But I do, you know, besides all of that, my surprise at some of the questions and the information, you know, for 2 years, we've been asking for an unbiased report with verified data on the effectiveness of the pilot program, specifically a racial impact assessment, which would uphold the city's anti-racism statement from 2020. So, you know, the chief gave a report tonight, but this is the police department. It's not a unbiased, it's not a report from somebody who doesn't have a horse in this race. And also, you know, the stories of crimes that have been solved using Flock, we really don't know if they would have been solved without Flock, because how do you figure that out? I'm also really disturbed that, you know, I heard the chief say tonight that he went with something that was not our policy. And that is really concerning to me, that he made that decision and that, you know, the city council wasn't aware of it. And certainly the citizens or the people who drive through our city were not aware of that. And all of these changes, you know, that have been made have been not out in the open. And that's really, really disappointing. So I think it's, I think we haven't done our due diligence as a community, as a city council, as a police department. And I think it's, you know, a big ask that we trust this technology from a for-profit company, you know, backed by venture capital, and they have shown themselves to be untrustworthy. This is why many cities and municipalities have canceled with Flock. And, you know, this incident in Evanston, Illinois, you know, this is after June of 2025, where they're, you know, not holding up their agreements. Guthrie, Oklahoma, decided not to renew with Flock when their contract was up, and they agreed on an uninstall agreement with Flock, and Flock did not remove the cameras on time and continued to collect data. So, you know, they're going to cancel our data or erase it after 30 days, but they can't even get a tech out there to take down the cameras on time. I don't know. I'm not buying it. So I don't think that these are glitches in the system. although those exist too, but these are actions of a company that show us that business as usual equals refusal to comply with laws and agreements. Flock is not a good actor, and I would really ask us not to renew this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Howard Jacob, East Woodland Street. So first I want to acknowledge everybody's feelings on safety and security. It's never easy, but unfortunately, as has been shown a lot, it's very nebulous. And I'll take a minute to acknowledge, because it is important, the intent of Ferndale Police to apply a value system to the use of this. It is understandable that they're trying. That being said, and I'm terrible with details, so I always just see the forest. Flock is racist. Flock is dangerous. It's racist in its origins, it's racist in how it's been put together, it's been racist in its history and its use. Unfortunately, initially in our city, it was racist in its implementation. It maybe wasn't meant to be, but it was. Look at what the northern border had for cameras. Look at where our cameras were for 8 Mile. It was, again, maybe unintentionally, but racist. Intentional or not, when it comes to justice and what is right, there is more than just intentions and even arrests. And in the times we live in right now, when a secret police is openly, brazenly, kidnapping brown people right off the street and throwing them into concentration camps. When the federal government is spending billions on software that can break into anyone's devices and take all their information, including encrypted messages on Signal, and spending even more billions on AI that can comb and take any and all information it finds on national, state, municipal, corporate, and even private databases, including, of course, the information taken by Flock. Unfortunately, sorry, Chief, Big Brother's got a skeleton key. So in these times, where does Ferndale stand on what is right? Where do you, City Council, stand on what is right? An election is coming up. We're hearing words like community, transparency, responsibility. Do we want those words to be hollow? Will community, transparency, and responsibility only mean to make sure that the minutes accurately reflect the next new business on 9 Mile or Woodward? So it's not easy, but you are being asked, you are being tasked to do what is right for Ferndale, for the people, and for the community. It's not easy, but we need to show morality. We need to show ethics. We need to show strength of character. We need to rise to the occasion and rid Ferndale once and for all of this dangerous, racist system. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jonathan. I live on Shevlin Street in Ferndale. I didn't know much about Flock before finding out that it operates in our city and that we're considering the renewal of the contract. As is usually the case, when I tried to learn more, I followed the money. Flock's initial startup capital came from firms like Founders Fund, Bedrock Capital, Initialized Capital, and Y Combinator. Among these and other critical investors, you will find many connections to military contractors, government agencies, and a group of big tech investors affectionately known as the PayPal Mafia, notably Peter Thiel, the sweaty transhumanist billionaire owner of Palantir, who has said, and I quote, "I no longer believe freedom and democracy are compatible." Mark Andreessen, another major investor, is an outspoken believer in something called the iron law of oligarchy, and is on the record as saying, quote, "democracy is fake." These are the people invested in Flock, and the people pushing for its aggressive expansion across the country. And as for the idea, as much has been spoken about tonight, that it makes us more safe, there's been studies released by Flock claiming that it's instrumental in solving crime, and we hear a lot of statistics about how that is true. This study that I'm citing, they said it helped solve 10% of reported crime in the US. This was done by Flock employees with the oversight of 2 academic researchers, one of whom has since publicly questioned the validity of the study, and Flock has been fighting against the release of information on how this study was conducted and how much it paid these independent researchers. So we don't need to dig very deep to see who benefits from Flock. And in my opinion, it's not us, it's not Ferndale. This is a company from outside our city and state with deep financial ties to oligarchic venture capitalists. It's being used by federal agencies like ICE and DHS to infringe on our privacy and our civil liberties in ways that, to me, are deeply unethical and scary, frankly. Taking them at their word that this tech will no longer be used for immigration or reproduction rights or misused by the current federal administration strikes me as very naive. With Flock, we are paying to be spied on. No warrants, no judicial oversight, no convincing proof that it does anything to make our community safer. I personally, as a Ferndale voter, cannot in good conscience vote for any public official who continues to support the implementation of this technology. Many communities, as has been mentioned, have already rejected Flock and canceled, and I suggest that we follow their lead. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Simon Cohen. I live on Marshall near the high school. This seems like a remarkably simple question. We are paying money to give our private data to a private company. Our data, which is then protected by a corporate privacy policy. I'm sure everyone has gotten an email about some company changing their privacy policy. Flock themselves have changed the policy this year. I would like to rhetorically ask who they're going to ask before changing it again, because I know it's not going to be me, and it's not going to be you guys, and it's not going to be anyone in the room, including you two. At their whim, when they decide to change their policy, our data will be able to be given to whomever they so please. I don't want to be tracked. I don't want to be in a database. I can't imagine anyone in this room is happy to be on a server somewhere in a dark room. I don't trust these guys. Sorry. They aren't voted in. They are not responsible to me. They're not responsible to you. Flock is a multi-billion-dollar company. Ferndale operates on a couple $1 million a year. Flock can turn around and do whatever they want. What are we going to do about it? These cameras and Flock cannot accord with our values, because our values include not being tracked by automatic cameras. Please reject this proposal. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Terhar, and I live on Meadowdale Street in Ferndale. I want to start by thanking council for all of the time and effort you put into your research. It's very clear to me that you did a lot of it, and I appreciate the questions you brought tonight. I am echoing the concerns of several people before me about what feels like too much faith in the Flock company. It is, as many people have said, it's a company. Their aim is to make money. I feel like this conversation tonight was so robust, and I worry if this hadn't been coming up for a vote and if there hadn't been pressure from citizens to do this, what would have happened? Would any of these things have been picked apart, looked at, examined, changed? And what's the guarantee that that's going to happen in the future as they continue to change policies? Our chief of police is not a data security expert. That would be unrealistic for me to expect that, or a data ethics expert. And I think it's unrealistic to assume that this very powerful tool, that we actually have control over this, or that we can really monitor this and ensure that it is going to be in alignment with the way we want it to be used. That would take a massive amount of time and energy. And as people have said before, we frankly are a small player in this big picture of who Flock is. And they benefit from more data sharing. That's how they make their money. That's what drives their sales, more data sharing. So I have serious concerns about the ethics of Flock, and despite everyone's good intentions in this room, our ability to really put any stoppage in place on things that we don't want to happen with the data that's collected here. So I would ask that you do not renew this contract. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Dawn Widman. I'm West Marshall. I'm a Board of Police Commissioner here in the city of Ferndale. Also, I've been in law enforcement over 40 years, long time every level, and currently I'm in law enforcement in Detroit, where they also use Flock. As part of the citizen reviews, the CPART board, we have had no complaints. Nobody has come in. We review all use of force, all public citizen complaints, and there has been nothing about concerns related to Flock. Regardless, we as a commission have looked at this policy, and we have initiated things as we have the chief do a staff report or a chief report to us every meeting, and we would bring up issues, specifically myself, on things that I read in social media, newspaper articles, and I ask, what is Ferndale's position on this? Nobody has come to our meeting, and we are the Citizens Police Review Advisory Board. This is, okay, one time. We've been around 2 years,
Okay.
so just saying, I apologize. We're here, we're available, there's public comment, and I would just like you to utilize the resource that we are. And I'd like to thank the chief and all your good questions, and I'll be taking this stuff to the board. Thank you. No clapping? Come on.
My name is Prasad Vedagopal, live on West Troy Street. I had my prepared remarks, but I was hoping the CPRB member would be here. I actually, I'll say it in public, I actually was in many ways, a player in making sure that that body came into existence. There's a reason why I don't attend those meetings, besides the fact that I got 2 kids and all of that stuff. But I think the CPRB needs to ask itself some tough questions about why it is not in conversation with citizens. The preamble to the CPRB charter says that they will conduct racial equity assessments of all policies. They had a policy in front of them, the Flock policy. They've been in existence for a couple of years. Why didn't they actually conduct the racial equity assessment? Why didn't they hold public forums on this? Everybody knows it's coming up for a vote after a pilot program. Why didn't they hold the public forums and the community conversations to listen to alternative perspectives? That's citizen police oversight. That's what they should have been doing. So to stand here and say we didn't show up is an absolute abdication of the responsibility that is written in the charter of the board. They should have paid attention to that. I'm sorry. I think it's remarkable to blame us, private citizens, and say you never showed up and therefore we didn't do anything about it. No, we don't show up. You still have your job. It says so in the charter. It's actually remarkable to be here. In 2023, we had 2 community hearings. The first one was a webinar with no discussion allowed, and 3/4 of the time was spent by the PD and Flock presentations. And nobody knew who else was in the room because we didn't know who else was. We just couldn't see anybody else on that online thing. And some 3 or 4 questions were asked, and then the webinar was done. The second community conversation was held either the day of or after an ice storm, and had very low participation. No civil rights perspectives by the ACLU or the Brennan Center were provided at that time. Later, council actually violated its pilot policy when it allowed for an increase in the number of cameras, which itself was a violation of policy because it was supposed to go the other way, without an analysis that informed that decision, which was a second violation of its own policy. As far as I know, no racial equity assessment has been conducted on the flock policy by a racial equity action team. I don't even know if it still exists, the CPARB, or any other city body. Here we are now. Council has allowed flock to present its case. Where's the ACLU perspective? Where's the Brennan Center perspective? Where's the perspective of civil liberties experts? And I'll end with this. Is this issue not as important as our climate action plan or a master land use plan? We held multiple forums for those discussions, multiple models, alternative perspectives. Those perspectives were reflected in updated reports. Not one of those issues directly impacted our constitutional rights in the way that this does. Do our constitutional rights deserve less than a climate action plan? Why are we not having public conversations about this over many months and then deciding what the right thing to do is that agrees with the values of the city and of its most vulnerable residents? Thank you.
Hi, my name's Eric Erdman. I live on Wordsworth Street since 2007. I'm going to echo a lot of what my neighbors said here, but I want to start by saying I appreciate the chief and the police department here who have always served us well. And I loved hearing him say that he wants to represent the values of the city through the city council here. But what kind of struck me is the anecdotal evidence of crimes that have been, helped to have been solved with flock. The one in particular, I've worked at a casino for over 20 years. If somebody's wanted for a crime and stupid enough to walk in a casino, you don't need flock to catch them. So basically what I have to say, in agreeing with my neighbors, is that flock is a company that doesn't represent the values of our city. Bottom line, it's very clear that that they're not like us. So, okay, here at Ferndale, we can establish our rules, but, as of June, right, the rules changed. Who's to say in October the rules don't change again? The ACLU, although these guys said it isn't true, tells us that flock has worked with ICE, tells us that they are working with data brokerages to develop new technologies. Well, I don't know. I'm going to side with the ACLU over a couple sales guys. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Again, I think there are other options. In general, I'm opposed wholeheartedly to any kind of video surveillance. So that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and fellow community members. I want you to know that I really respect law enforcement. I've worked with Oakland County Step Forward program, helping people come out of county jails, doing reentry services and stuff like that. So to me, this is not a law enforcement issue. But my name is Josh Puckett, although I live in Detroit, just outside of Ferndale's border. But as a queer person, my roots here run deep. My mother, Christine Puckett, along with her partner, Susan Pickman, helped found Affirmations Community Center that anchors this city. They were murdered in a hate crime because they loved each other, as many couples in this community do. History reminds me that safety for diverse communities have never been guaranteed. It must be protected. Affirmations is more than just a building, it's a lifeline. With over 30,000 visits a year for youth programs, support groups, healthcare, art, and community, it remains one of the most important safe spaces in Michigan. And in the past 3 decades, Ferndale itself has become a symbol, a place where queer and trans communities, immigrants, and those who face discrimination feel they can live openly and free from persecution. In today's national climate, when LGBTQ rights, reproductive rights, immigrant rights are under fire, we cannot ignore how quickly surveillance can be turned against the most vulnerable people. A pivot in federal policy or a lawsuit from a hostile administration or Pam Bondi could take this data and use it to track who attends affirmations, who travels for abortion care, who belongs to immigrant communities. The heart of this issue is trust. Ferndale has built its reputation on being a safe space. If people believe their movements could be logged and later weaponized against them, that erodes trust, and with it, the very identity that makes this city a beacon of safety and inclusion. I urge you to ensure Ferndale continues to lead, not by adding surveillance, but by standing firmly with those whose lives and rights are most at risk. Safety must mean freedom, freedom to live, gather, love, and seek care without freedom of being without fear of being tracked. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Des Squire. I'm with the Michigan Roundtable for Just Communities. We are based in the city of Detroit. I'm here tonight because we have been conducting a community survey across the Southeast Michigan region around public-facing dashboards, particularly looking at law enforcement. We are actually going to be hosting a conversation here in the city of Ferndale on October 21st at Incubizo. My bad. And from 6 to 8 in that to open a conversation about community input for public-facing dashboards. The city of Ferndale actually does have a transparency dashboard in that, and they have some really unique, awesome features that we haven't seen in some of the other dashboards, particularly looking at like mental health referrals, offering up the agency policies, and that looking at police conduct complaints and crime trends in that. What helps make their dashboard user-friendly is the fact that you have in here traffic crashes, which helps make comparisons for demographics, especially because Ferndale is a commuter city in that, and you guys are on the Woodward Fairway. So in tonight's conversation, there was mention of a dashboard in that for the flock safety in that. And so being the nosy little person that I am in that, taking a look at it, that dashboard really doesn't share a lot. It is basically a demonstration of tonight's conversation in that there is nothing clickable or usable. It doesn't offer anything as comparison beyond the examples and information that was provided tonight. And it actually refers individuals back to Ferndale's transparency dashboard and that to take a look at the flock policy. I bring this up because when we start to sit down and compare data and information, the examples that were used tonight were particularly around violent crime and that. However, Ferndale's dashboard is really focused around misdemeanor type crimes and that, or property crimes. And so there's really no point of comparison to talk about what is the frequency of burglaries, armed robberies, murders or attempted assaults, and that beyond what is provided on the flock dashboard. So as you consider your decision for moving forward with this flock contract and that, please consider what that transparency piece looks like and what the accountability piece is so that we are able to take a look not only for you internally in that, but for your community in that so they feel reassured about what is the information being provided, is it effective, is it actually helping to further the safety of this community. Thank you so much.
Chris Hall, Slime Street. I know.
Go ahead, okay.
Before I start speaking, I just want to make sure that I'm not interrupted. I don't need snap fingers or little waves from Kurt from Glee. I think we have to look at a holistic view. My hope was more so of a cost aspect. Why are we just going with the first proposal of $57K, where was an analysis between either A, hiring another police officer, or looking at other LPR companies based on a cost perspective. I see what the audience is saying in regards to everything that was discussed tonight, but I think it's a bigger issue. Why wasn't a bigger forum with residents happen before this conversation? I think we need to be better about communicating these things to folks, and it's not up to a commission or a board. And the police chief can only do so much. Like someone said, he is not a data analyst. We need to be better about communicating things to residents. And if people are just going to show up for hot topics to a city council meeting, then what are you really doing for our city? I've been to every meeting for a year. I can count probably 5 times I've seen certain people in this room. You have to be civically engaged with your community if you want to add your 2 cents to something at the end of the day. And to me, that is important. From people that I know in the city, they didn't even know Flock even existed, never heard of a company or anything like that, that this was even happening. On the other hand, some people did know. Some people want it, some people don't want it. But we have to communicate these things. A town hall should have been held at point blank period. So that's all I have to say.
Hello, my name is Quinn Ziegler. I am at 705 West Camborne Street. And I have been following this topic since it first came before City Council, and I've personally discussed the issue with Police Chief Emmy. And like we heard tonight, all indications are that the Ferndale Police Department has used Flock responsibly and as it is intended to be used. And as we've heard tonight, the system has helped to solve serious crimes in our community. But there are 2 problems that I cannot ignore when it comes to Flock. First, the ACLU has reported that Flock is introducing artificial intelligence to flag people's movement patterns as suspicious, even if no crime has been committed. And whether or not that feature is available to Ferndale, I do not believe that our tax dollars should go to a company that promotes technology designed to generate suspicion. Second, while Ferndale has put safeguards in place, we can't guarantee that the federal government will not gain access to this data, even against our wishes. And in today's political climate, that risk is real, and it endangers vulnerable people in our community, including immigrants and those exercising their reproductive rights. As an immigrant myself, and as a woman, this worry hits particularly close to home. We heard tonight that Flock changed their policies to prohibit these searches, but the rules can just change back just as easily. Caring for our community means protecting us from crime, but it also means dismantling the tools that can be used to oppress us in the future. I ask City Council to discontinue our relationship with Flock.
Good evening, Mara Livesey. My response is mostly based on what was given in the presentation and in terms of the data that we saw. And I want to encourage council to make your decision based on data and not based on, emotions that might be a result of some of the more, terrible crimes that Flock may have been used for. Because understanding that the police maybe aren't experts in data analysis, understanding the data is critical to your decision. And it seems like you did a fantastic pivot table and you analyzed that data, and even understanding the data at that level seems to be more understanding of the data than we had prior to tonight. So that demonstrates that we don't understand what's happening with Flock. And I just ask that council receives more data and better data before you make your decision, because we cannot understand how this technology is harming us unless we dig into that data. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Swears. I am a Ferndale resident. I am here speaking in support of the Chief's vision for the use of Flock. I appreciate the Chief and the board and other residents' thoroughness on this matter, as it is a very complex one, and I do understand that. I believe the Chief has provided us with assurances that he will address the privacy concerns of the citizens and weigh those with the needs of public safety, which I still, as a resident, believe is very important. Are the crimes that are occurring that he and his department are able to solve with this technology. It was said that we want to keep Ferndale as a safe place, as one resident said, and we want to keep it that way. One of those things being is the assurances that the Chief has given us of how this will be implemented and used. And there should be open dialect and discussion for that. As one thing, I want the police department to be able to use all the tools accessible to them to keep all the residents, myself and my husband, safe in our community. I understand the concerns addressed tonight of those that do oppose flock, especially with issues at the federal level, but I have full faith in the chief and our police department will properly administer this technology in keeping with the values of the citizens and the city as a whole. It is important to remember the list of the crimes that the chief said and showed that flock directly impacted in solving that did affect the most vulnerable of our community. I recognize the citizens of the board's concerns about the national searches, and the discussion should be had about the policy of these searches and reviewed more frequently as this technology does evolve. I think those are conversations that should be had, but I don't think that this is a program that should be completely removed. As Councilman Johnson said, that this is a tool to solve these crimes. Let's not take or hinder our police department and our investigators' toolbox by taking tools that they can use that are found to be legally sound for their investigations. Another resident made a point saying, who knows if these crimes would have been solved with or without flock, and that's actually a good problem to have. I'd rather have that than where we have, who knows if this crime, or if we had flock, maybe a crime would have been solved. It's showing our police department is doing their diligent job with the tools available to them. So I do support the chief's vision for flock, and I hope you guys do as well. Thank you.
All right. Madam Mayor, there is a letter that was requested that be read, so I will, if with your permission.
Well, why don't I close call to audience first before?
Oh, it's part of called, because it's.
It's part of, okay,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, go
It
ahead.
was intended to be part of called audience.
You going within the 3 minutes?
I will read fast.
Was it someone who already spoke tonight?
It's different content. Dear Ferndale City Council members, so for context, this is a letter that has been signed by 151 residents. I'm writing to you today to urge you to vote no on renewing the contract with Flock license plate readers in our city. The case against Flock surveillance goes far beyond the power, authority, and use of the technology by our own police department. The problem is who gains access to the data and for what purpose. And this is largely outside of our hands in the city of Ferndale, but we have a choice about whether or not we will participate in it. More and more communities across the country are saying no and ending their contracts with Flock surveillance cameras. Will Ferndale City Council step up to protect its residents? Flock has shared private data with federal authorities without local permission, has been sued by states for violating their state law, and has shared plans to dramatically increase its surveillance of citizens across the country and connect that data to other systems for round-the-clock public surveillance. Flock's technology has been used to assist with everything from ICE investigations in Illinois to abortion investigations in Texas. In fact, it created a pilot program for the purpose of sharing with the DHS and ICE. At the same time, it told consumers that it held no federal contracts. Even though it claims it has paused the service due to an outcry across the country, DHS and ICE continue to access data through queries made to local police departments. While Ferndale's contract might say that they will not share data with ICE, their service agreement says Flock may access, use, preserve, and/or disclose the footage to law enforcement authorities, government officials, and/or third parties if legally required to do so, or if Flock has a good faith belief that such access, use, preservation, or disclosure is reasonably necessary. Derek Eder of the Oak Park, Illinois Village Board recently voted with the majority in his city to successfully end the Flock contract they have had since 2022. He experienced pushback from law enforcement saying that the ALPR cameras are a necessary tool of modern-day policing and that protections of data are in place. However, their Civilian Police Oversight Commission evaluated the technology and found that over 99% of alerts did not result in any police action. Flock was also unable or unwilling to provide Oak Park any evidence of long-term effectiveness. Again, that's Oak Park, Illinois, not Michigan. In its racial equity statement, Ferndale says it is intentional about creating equity and making a welcoming and inclusive community for all. The Flock contract goes against all of this that we claim to hold dear. With seemingly little to no benefit and a great and real risk of harm, do not become complicit in perpetuating a mass surveillance police state in our city. I urge you to vote no on doing any business with Flock in our city. With hope, residents of the city of Ferndale. This was signed by 151 residents living on a large number of streets that are listed, which I will not attempt to list in 24 seconds.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. All
right, then I'm going to close call to audience at 8:59. But I just want to say that I appreciate everyone coming out in support or against, because it's important for us to hear both sides and the reasoning behind it. Chief, I appreciate your presentation, as always. And it looks like council and we have a decision to make before October 13th. With that being said, I'm going to go on to the consent agenda, because we have no public hearing tonight. Item 7A, approval of the September 8th, 2025 meeting minutes. 7B, approval of the listed appointments and reappointments to city boards and commissions. 7C, approval of the revised council rules of procedures. 7D, approval to backfill police command positions. 7E, approval of Purdue direct opioid settlement agreement. 7F, approval of secondary manufacturers opioid settlement agreement. 7G, approval of proposal by Hubble, Roth and Clark, Inc. for engineering services for the lead service line replacement program in an amount not to exceed $70,000. 7H, approval of bills and payrolls as submitted by the Finance Director and subject to review by the Council Finance Committee. And 7I, approval of assignment, assumption, and amendment to the Workforce Housing Restrictive Covenant for 141 Vester Avenue.
Motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
He's not.
Right. Absent.
Just want to make sure that's captured.
Want to make sure it's captured that we, okay.
Got it. Thank you.
All right. Motion carries. We are moving on to the regular agenda. Approval of the BSNA cloud transition quote.
Well, clearly our financial management software is not as exciting as some of our other relationships, but I'll, thank you, Chris. I'm excited about it. All right, I think this is actually a topic of conversation that first came up during my job interview for the city manager position with the city. So something I'm very excited to now be able to present to you is a formal proposal for a transition to the BSNA cloud platform. A quick snapshot here. What is BSNA? This is the city's primary financial management software. We use it for everything from utility billing to taxes to all of our cash receipting and receivables. This is a very commonly accepted best standard software for Michigan municipalities and really many municipalities across the Midwest. Their reach goes as far as Florida. Currently, we host 11 different unique .NET applications that require additional IT security and support to host them locally. The cloud transition would eliminate the need for that and instead create one centralized platform for us. And the reason we're looking at this now is as we've gone through transitions within our finance department and looking at the needs of our staff today, it's very obvious that there is a great deal of way to go in terms of improving the functionality and efficiency of how we perform our financial operations, as well just in terms of creating a better standard for staff education around the systems that we use and the processes that we have in place. So with this cost-benefit consideration, what I looked most specifically at were 3 key performance areas, and that is education and ease of understanding, improved process controls, and network security. Regarding education and ease of understanding, really the cloud platform blows the .NET platform out of the water. They've implemented a lot of new solutions within the cloud-based platform, specifically an advanced customer support portal that has existing integrated resources. So right now, if I have an issue with BSNA, I have to submit a support ticket. They are incredibly responsive. I usually hear from them within a couple hours.
But under the new platform, there's an existing knowledge base, there's in-app guidance, there's integrated AI tools. So it is also, doing that part of learning as it goes, and not just from us, but from other users to their cloud system to help with troubleshooting problems that we experience in real time. Additionally, by transitioning to cloud now, getting out ahead of the curve, we can be in a group that is, has the time to dedicate to implementation training. So one thing you will see in this platform is I was quite conservative in the total number of days I wanted to see for staff training and education, and I did include a user acceptance training period. So this would be an opportunity for us to create something of a sandbox for staff to operate in, safely play around with the different modules inside BSNA Cloud. That's not something we've been able to do in the past before. These are just a quick look at what those kind of new customer support tools are starting to look like. And then moving on to the second criteria I looked at, which was improved process control. The city has invested time and money into updating its policies around things like procurement, investments, various financial management standards. Now integrating that into the platform that we actually use on a day-to-day basis is the next step of that process. Making sure that the solutions we have in place really mirror what we need to do from a policy perspective. And specifically, I looked at 4 areas that I felt cloud could stand out for us, and one is that it is highly centralized. So again, right now we have 11 different platforms. They are connected, they speak to each other, but you can't access information very easily across the different platforms. So I can't get utility billing history for a resident while I'm inside a tax application. I have to open up a whole other software system. With a cloud-based platform, it is actually using a central person record, so everything about that individual and their relationship with their city financially is available to us in one place. And this is a lot more similar to what the residents already experience on the public portal side of things, which is a really easy toggle between tax, utility billing, taxes, utilities, and building, generally speaking. This also helps to support a transition away from the Oakland County systems. Right now, we have a really redundant model of having to manage duplicate tax systems because of our historical relationship with Oakland County. The transition to the cloud platform would be our step away from that. And then because it's fully integrated, there's no question of accuracy. The information that is put into the assessing module is automatically picked up in the tax module. Address information being changed in utility billing is recognized across the full platform. The second process control that I looked at is the customization. This is really more for the staff side of things, but I thought it's worth mentioning here. Much more intuitive design. I think about the next generation of staff and how they learn. This is going to feel a lot more familiar to those individuals who are used to a customizable, adaptive, AI-driven learning model for their management tools. In that regard, you can create custom dashboards, so you can create solutions that are unique to each individual user. Right now, when you use the .NET platform, it is a standard interface. There's no customization really. Some small things you can change in terms of like the reports that you generate for yourself. But this is a completely unique layout. So myself, having done this in a previous community, created a layout for myself that was exclusive to my role in approving high-level budgetary expenses and managing and monitoring the status of budgets. What another user within the system might create would look entirely different, and that helps to create efficiencies in terms of how quickly you find information and how quickly information is highlighted to you. It also identified opportunities for better workflow. I kind of alluded to that in an earlier slide, which is the system now is based on a Microsoft Azure workflow platform, which completely opens up the door to us customizing all sorts of new processes. I'm very excited about what this can do for our procurement process and the automation tools that we can implement into it. Right now, the city has PO. We haven't fully implemented it. Really, a PO only gets generated when it is specifically requested by a vendor. Inside of the BSNA platform, the processes that we design would exist inherently within the system. If council approves a purchase for a specific limit, that limit will be identified within the software and flagged to me or the manager, whoever's assigned to it, if and when it begins to approach that limit. It's also fully integrated with tax distribution. That's just an internal pain point for us, is it's a manual process that we have to go through now. And then last, easy onboarding and at the same time, easier offboarding. Again, 11 different softwares. If you are a user that needs to access all of those, we have to manually give you security clearance to all of those. Instead, with a centralized platform, we can create one user management database and assign and remove authorities as they are necessary. It's also just more level of authorities and different user-based security features depending on what level of the organization you are a part of. You can access it anywhere without a remote connection, and that really drives a reduced need for IT support in order to access these tools, as Councilmember Johnson experienced earlier tonight. And then one really big thing, and I conferred with our IT team on this, is it is a huge win for our enhanced network security. So this has all the same benefits of moving to any other cloud-based platform and away from a locally hosted solution. There's a lot of things highlighted here, but there's 5 big takeaways that IT really wanted to focus on. One, it is less reliance on physical aging infrastructure. We did have in our budget spending almost $50,000 on this year just to buy a server in order to host this data. We would no longer need to do that. Again, it's less IT support and expertise that we need in the future. These systems, once they're up and in place, any manager can oversee the integration of a new user. The training modules are inherent to the cloud system itself. There's also improved security and compliance because it's automatically updating. Again, right now, those updates occur when users manually log into the system. Here, there's no need for that. Patches are occurring in real time. Security is staying up to date on a near constant basis. And then another huge one, the cloud is backed up automatically. We do not have to worry about our data saving. We don't have to worry about data recovery or disaster recovery. This is something actually we'd report to our insurance agency to say that we have this tool now, and would help us in terms of meeting criteria for our cybersecurity insurance. And then last, I referenced this already, but not having to log in remotely on a VPN is a huge security improvement for our system. Having this as a cloud-based solution with its own multi-factor authentication tools is really the most secure way to store this data. What does it look like from here? Unfortunately, it's a 10 to 12 month timeline. They are quite backed up. The indication is that within probably the next 3 to 5 years, the .NET platform will be fully decommissioned and everyone will be asked to go to cloud. So we're kind of in that middle phase. All the early adopters have worked out the kinks, and now the rest of the municipalities are starting to get on board slowly but surely. So there's a little bit of a timeline. They have a wait to get into that queue, but if we start now, the expectation is by fall of 2026, we would be ready for go live. Questions or discussion?
Oh, right, okay. So wrapped up. Open it up for discussion for council regarding BSNA.
Well, I spend my life in ERPs, Enterprise Resource Planning System. And this is something that, frankly, I mentioned on the campaign trail that the city needed to do, that we needed a better financial system that would really help us have better controls and allow us to rationalize what our finance department looks like, what it does, what we get from each of the staff members who work in that department, the desire for more procurement control and workflows. It's a constant conversation that I am having with the city manager about our procurement processes and policies and the sort of pitfalls that we do seem to fall into periodically. And a system like this is just going to be a game changer for the city. It's sort of shocking to me that BSNA has taken this long to begin the process of deprecating .NET. They should have began their cloud transition many years ago, along with everyone else. But I'm glad that I'm glad they have, and I'm glad that we're getting on board with it. I think my question, because I do have a question, is, setting this up, we're only just now kind of beginning to rebuild the finance department. We know we've lost a number of people, and we're only just kind of getting into that space. With Mr. Watson being on board in his temporary capacity and the folks that we have already brought in, plus your own knowledge and experience, James's knowledge and experience, how are we sort of scoping and putting together the sort of needs list that the system needs to cover? Now, we already use BSNA, so I think it's pretty straightforward, but thinking through even how the new finance department would be structured around this new system, is that part of the current planning so that we build a department that also is integrated with this tool? Does that make sense?
100%. And that's exactly the phase that we're at now. Knowing the runway we have to get to the actual implementation period, what I'm working with Interim Director Watson on as we're onboarding new staff is process. Process. How do we do things? Is it the best way to do things, or do we need to change that? And then documenting that process. As drilled down is, how do you go about filing a refund, for someone that overpaid their taxes? How are we responding to requests from Stripe when a transaction fails? Those are the kind of documented processes that we can create workflows in. Flags within our system when we have the cloud implementation, and the onus will be on us over really the next 10 months to start building that out and having that prepared so that when we get to the implementation period, we can say very clearly to BSNA, these are the workflows that we want you to generate for us. Now, that's not to say we have to have everything solved in 10 months. That's a tall order. But I know we can get the big pieces out of the way. We can get a really solid procurement standard settled. We can build processes around workflows for pretty much everything that we're doing now and not have to worry about, well, who remembers how to do that? Oh, they all left. Okay, so let's build the process again. It will be a workflow designed within the system itself.
Through the chair, quick question. Moving to the cloud, are we going to regain what I have heard we had in the past, which is the ability to set up monthly payments for tax payments?
So that is something that's set up through the BSNA payments platform. While it is the same vendor, it is exclusive from the cloud service. So the cloud applications are the software we use for financial management. The payment platform is different. They have indicated to me that they are trying to build that recurring payment service. But you have to keep in mind, Ferndale's pretty unique. Most communities don't have payment plans for their taxes. So it wasn't really conceptualized as an option that they designed it with. But it does exist for utility billing. We have the support ticket in, and we've asked them to look at what it would take to build it.
Would one of the benefits of this new system be that you could set up sort of reporting dashboards or canned reports, automated reports, things that could come to this body? Things like automated general ledger reports, yes, budget versus actual reports, all the things that we talk about a lot, and that Steve knows a lot about. We could set those up such that we are getting more regular automated access and views into what's going on financially.
Yes. Yes, you can create automated reporting tools.
Awesome.
Or recurring reporting tools.
That's huge. That's huge for us. That's huge for us. Or for me, and I know Pro Tim Mikulski. We both are
excited about it.
We both are very jazzed about dashboards and reporting. So,
well, and you can create view-only dashboards for council that are custom to what you want to see.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I realized I didn't do? We didn't have a motion before discussion.
Yeah.
We were so excited.
They got so excited, yeah.
Why don't we have a motion and then continue discussions should we need to?
Okay. I move that we approve the quote for implementation and transition from BSNA.net services to BSNA Cloud services in an amount not to exceed $214,495, and to authorize the city manager to amend the fiscal year 2026 budget as presented.
Support.
Now we'll continue discussion. Okay.
I'm actually, I've got my questions. Anything else would be way too granular for us to get into, you know.
We'll talk about it later.
It's more of a finance committee discussion, not a full body discussion.
See, the only other question that I had, I noticed, maybe I'm just misreading the attachment versus what's in the packet. In the packet, it says, currently the city expects to pay $45,313 for BSNA.net subscriptions in 2026. And expected costs in fiscal year 2027 are up to $94,000. Looking in the packet on page, what is this, page 2, it looks like our annual fee for the upgrade cloud modules is $79,670. So I'm trying to figure out, is that the annual fee or is it?
That will be the annual fee moving forward.
Okay.
That the first year's fee is reduced by what we would have paid for .NET services. So they give you a credit in the first year.
Okay. Okay. Then where is this 94,000 coming from?
That is the sum of the first two payments, because it's split up. If you look at the timeline, it's split up into three payments: the first invoice, the second invoice, and the final invoice. So the first and second invoice are about 94,000, and that doesn't include the credit against it for. That's what I actually anticipate will hit this fiscal year.
Okay.
The final implementation invoice won't occur until fiscal year 27.
Got it. Thank you for the clarity.
I'm gonna call a question.
I'm excited. All right. Okay. I can tell.
This is the best thing I voted on yet.
Then I guess if there are no other questions, comments, we will do an individual roll call.
Johnson.
Yes.
Polika.
Yes.
Mikulski.
Yes.
Leaks May.
Yes. And with that, the motion carries. I'm too tired to read out this whole motion, so it carries. All right. It's been a long night. Now we are moving on to call to council, where I'm going to take this opportunity to defer to the city manager for all of the department head updates for tonight.
Okay, first we have parks.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The only thing that we really need to talk about is the upcoming Fall Festival this Saturday. It'll be taking place at Martin Road Park from 11 a.m. until 3 p.m. We're going to have a bevy of different opportunities for recreation, including pumpkin painting, there's a pumpkin patch that you get your pumpkin and then you take it to go and paint. Sorry for the brain fart. We'll have hay rides, pony rides. We'll have games and activities. We'll have concessions from our Ferndale seniors that will be doing the bake sale. We'll have roller skating that'll be taking place inside of the curling club itself. We'll have DJs, music all over the place, food truck vendors. All of this is available for you for $8 per person until Wednesday. And after that date, it will revert to $10 per person. We are encouraging all families to, as much as possible, pre-register for this event. And it will make it easier for you to get through the line, get your wristbands quickly, and it'll free up the staff to not have to worry about taking your credit card and entering all your information and all of that stuff. We also encourage everybody to, if you are going to be paying at the door, please make sure as much as possible to pay with cash. Again, that speeds up the process for us a little bit so we don't have a bottleneck at the entryways. We want to thank our sponsors for this event. In particular, we want to thank the Garlic Artichoke Foundation, Vibe Credit Union, Krager's Plumbing, and the Hand and Stone Massage. And also, we are also still looking for volunteers. Anybody that wants to come out and help with this family-friendly event. We'll be doing setup on Friday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then the actual event for the volunteer shifts range from 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. for some setup, some tear down, and some in-between stuff, operating games and things like that. And that is it from us.
Can adults get a pumpkin in the pumpkin patch?
If you pay for it.
Okay, that seems fair.
Does the pumpkin include entry?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So yeah, you pay
okay,
for your
that's what I wanted
wristband,
to find
you have rights to get a pumpkin as long as supplies last.
All right, rights to pumpkin, got it. That's what I'm looking for. And is the link for people to sign up and stuff, where do they go on the website to get that? Is it on the homepage? So it's on the homepage?
Mhm.
So I don't spend a lot of time on the homepage itself. I've bookmarked all the other subpages, sorry. Okay, thank you, Riley.
All good? All right, thank you.
EPW?
Curbside leaf collection will start October 20th. This year we're starting weekly service. We'll have a post out soon with details, including a map, some website updates with the timeline, and I'm going to discuss that in more detail at the next council. Please, in the meantime, do not place leaves on the street early. They can go in bags. They can go anywhere else except the street. Our sweeper will be out. Our sweeper cannot pick up piles of leaves. It's just there to kind of pick up what falls on the streets, clear the catch basins. One thing that I do and that I would suggest is just blow it or rake it into your landscape beds. It can sit there until the program starts. And I feel like there was something else I was going to say, but that is probably it.
Fire?
Good evening. Just a reminder, we also have our fire department open house. So both city events are on the safe side of town, so make it great for families to support both. Go to Monroe Park, come to the fire department. Ours is from 1 to 4. We will be we have our fire prevention trailer that people go into. We'll be doing demonstrations for the fire blanket and doing some giveaways of those. Teaching hands-only CPR. We will have fire gear for kids and grown-up kids to try on if they want to. Some treats. And we are partnering with Sakura to do a battery collection because this year's safety message is batteries, and try to educate people on the dangers of where you should charge and not charge and all that property. So if you have batteries, don't throw them in the garbage. Bring them to us. We will have the collection bins there.
And then just two quick PSAs from police in Chief Emmy's absence. One, reminder to residents, please avoid placing campaign signs. Residents and candidates, please avoid placing campaign signs on public property. That is not permissible. You can check our code of ordinances for locations that are permissible. And then also, we've seen an uptick in B&Es into vehicles. So wherever your car is parked, in your own driveway or not, please be mindful to lock it. That's all.
Nothing from you, Dean? Okay.
I'll have more soon.
All right, all right. All right, then call to council. I'll start with Councilmember Pollock.
I have nothing this week.
Nothing, okay. Councilmember Johnson?
Nothing from me?
Mayor Pro Tem Mikulski?
Just my thoughts are with Councilmember Kelly. I know she really wanted to be here tonight, but she needs to be with her family. So my thoughts are with her, that's all.
All right. And my thoughts are going out to the church that had the active shooter and the families who were impacted. We're hearing so much more of these events, and it gets a little weary hearing about it. over and over again. So just, I think it's really important to keep in mind that we still have, no matter how weary we get, we still have to be vigilant, we still have to be strong and fight against it, because otherwise, if we do nothing, then nothing will happen. So with that being said, I think it's important to, with this being an election season, some pretty big elections coming up this year, next year, I think it's really important to get to know the people who are running for office and what they stand for, and do they align with our values. And with that being said, I don't know, I'm just a little weary about it. But with that being said, I call this meeting to adjourn at 9:29. Thank you, everyone, for everything and all of your conversations tonight.